never planned on sharing this. My name is Jack Harry, 34 years old, and I live, or lived, in a plain 2-story house on Overland Road in Boise, Idaho. Nothing special about the place. We got it because the price was low and it had extra space. Last summer, my girlfriend Lena and I started fixing up the attic to make it my study. I like building model trains, and the garage gets freezing in winter. That's how this whole thing began. Lena left an old nursery monitor up there while we were moving boxes around. It was the one we borrowed for her sister's kid a couple years back. She forgot to bring it down. For the first week, I actually used it like a walkie-talkie with her. The cheap walkie sets we bought sucked. The signal died if you went past the kitchen. But the attic monitor? Crystal clear, even from downstairs. Weird how that worked. At night, I started hearing things. Not loud bangs, just footsteps, slow ones. Around 3 a.m. most nights. Like someone in sneakers walking careful across the plywood floor up there. I'd lie in bed telling myself it was raccoons or the house shifting. But then came the scrape. A shoe dragging once or twice. One time I clearly heard the clack of a screwdriver being placed down. Metal on wood. I even banged the ceiling with a mop handle once at 3:30. Silence after that. Nothing. One Friday evening, I drove to the little store on 5 Mile to grab a 24-pack of water and an orange Gatorade. Lena wanted it after her double shift at the hospital. I paid, walked out, got in the car, and realized my keys were gone. I always hang them on the hook by the back door, every single time. I checked pockets, the center console, under the seat. Nothing. I figured I dropped them in the parking lot or left them on the counter. I had a spare in my wallet, so I got home okay. That night at 4:14 a.m., the monitor lit up by itself. I kept the receiver on the nightstand now. The green light blinked and I heard my keys. The jingle when they lift off the metal hook. Then soft steps down the hallway. Fabric rustling. Keys sliding into a coat pocket. I froze. My mouth tasted like metal. I grabbed my phone, opened the saved clips on the monitor app. I played it back. After the keys moved, right in one quick breath, a whisper. Numbers. Dates. July 12th, 2018. October 3rd, 2019. February 9th, 2022. Calm. Like reading a grocery list. Then humming. A nursery rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, maybe? Soft. Not singing out loud. Just humming. I sat there in the dark, replaying it 3 times. My arms got goosebumps. I didn't tell Lena the next morning. She already rolls her eyes when I double-check the doors. I downloaded the full baby monitor app on my phone. Set it to record audio whenever motion triggered. Left the receiver up in the attic facing the hatch. 3 nights straight. Every night it was almost the same. 2:37 a.m., pacing. 10 steps one way, 10 back, steady, then complete stop. The second I cracked the bedroom door to peek, like they knew. I'd stand in the hall holding my breath. Floorboards creaked under me like they always do when I move. Nothing from above. I'd go back to bed. 5 minutes later, pacing again. The 4th night, I cracked. Around 2:30, I got the flashlight and the aluminum bat from under the bed. Lena was snoring soft. I didn't wake her. Dumb move looking back. I stood under the hatch in the hallway, hands shaking. I pulled the cord. Ladder came down slow. I climbed, 1 rung at a time. Attic smelled like dust and pine from the insulation. Flashlight beam jumped around. Boxes, old Christmas lights. The monitor still on the shelf. Then, in the corner behind some plastic tubs, I saw it. A child's blanket, faded blue, little yellow stars, spread flat on the plywood like someone smoothed it out. On top, someone arranged my mail. Not junk. Unpaid electric bill face up. Library notice from last year. Book I never returned. Credit card statement. Cable bill. All neat. Like a display. Like someone studied them. I stared. Couldn't move at first. My brain kept saying Lena did it for a prank. But she won't go up there because of the spiders. And those dates matched the bills exactly. I backed down fast. Shut the hatch. Locked our bedroom door. We never lock it. Sat on the bed till the sun came up. When Lena woke, I told her. She didn't laugh. Her face went white. We called the cops that afternoon. They came, looked. No broken windows and no kicked-in doors. Hatch lock fine. No prints that weren't ours. No trash, no food, no smell of someone living there. Just the blanket and the mail pile. We packed and left 2 weeks later. New apartment across town. I still wake up some nights around 2:37. Listen for pacing that isn't there. But I know it could start again anywhere. Whoever it was didn't break in one night. They learned me, my routines. When I showered, when I left for work, when the house was quiet. They moved in the spaces I left empty, used my own habits to stay hidden. I keep thinking about the humming, soft, patient, like they were waiting for something, or maybe just content to be close. I wish I never used that monitor as a walkie, because that's how they heard my voice first. How they knew exactly how I sounded when I talked to Lena. How alone I'd be when they let me hear them move. I never thought a house could teach you the shape of fear. I bought an old Craftsman in Seattle on a rainy Thursday. Small things piled up, receipts, socks, a lamp left by movers, and then it simply got worse, slowly and then fast. My name is Ryder Hale. I moved from Boston and lived alone with my cat, Nimbus. The movers left an IKEA lamp leaning on an Amazon Prime box in the parlor. At first I ignored odd things. A torn Red Bull receipt behind the dryer. A child's rocket sock in the linen closet. I do not have kids. A month later, I climbed into the attic because the heater rattled. The attic smelled like cheap cologne and old coffee. The insulation was flattened in a patch, like someone had slept there. Footprints led to a small plywood platform behind Christmas lights. On the platform were a paperback with coffee rings, a cracked phone with a dead battery, and pieces of a notebook. The notebook had grocery lists and times. The times matched nights I worked late and took the 8:10 train home. I sat on the ladder and tried to calm myself. After that, I started doing little experiments. I left a slice of cold pizza on the kitchen counter to see if it would be touched. I set a frying pan on the stove and walked to the store to buy milk. Dumb, I know. I told myself maybe a squatter lived in the walls. I thought maybe it was someone desperate. That thought let me sleep some nights. I bought a door sensor for $29.99 and later a cheap motion cam. The sensor pinged and I thought it was a delivery. Then my phone buzzed with a photo of my living room taken from the ceiling vents. The timestamp was 20 minutes after my 8:10 train ride home. I stared at those numbers for a long time. The motion cam caught a slim shadow at 2:14 a.m. slipping back into the attic through a panel I thought sealed. It moved like someone who knew the house. I found a scrap with a name, Lenore J. I had never heard that name. I held the paper in my hand and smelled dust and coffee. I did dumb things. I sat in my car and watched the house after work. I left a jacket with my phone by the door to see if it moved. I left a plate of leftovers in the sink as a test. I told my neighbor Lola Finch from Tampa, who left lemon bars once. She said change the locks and call the police. I changed the locks. The police were kind and they checked the attic. They took my statement and the broken phone. They said people sometimes squat. One night, Nimbus woke me with rough mews. The attic door was open a crack. There was a smear of dust along the frame. On the stairs, a small, dusty footprint, not mine and not the movers. It looked like a child's shoe size small. I replayed clips and saw a hand lift a vent panel. The face was blurred, but the watch on the wrist was clear. Cheap plastic, cracked. Then a message arrived with a photo of my stairs from above. My shoes in the frame. The timestamp again. 20 minutes after the 8:10. I remember the sound of the 8:10 announcements on the train and how I used to hum a stupid tune on the ride home. The thought that someone timed things by that train made me feel raw and small. I climbed the ladder one night with the cam in my pocket. The panel was open. On the platform was a mug with a coffee ring and a paper with 8:10 written 3 times. The watch was there too. I wanted to smash it, but instead I folded the paper and put it in my pocket like a kid hiding a secret. I sat on the stairs for a long time and stared at the rain on the porch roof. I yelled into the vents once after a clip showed a shadow slipping away. It sounded stupid, my voice bouncing back at me and sounding like a bad recording. The shadow never came down. It closed the panel above me and the house went quiet again. The police found nothing more. They suggested a stakeout but said evidence could be thin. I tried a stakeout on my own. I sat in the dark with the TV low and a flashlight under my chin, feeling like a child telling ghost stories. I fell asleep at some point and woke to the cat nudging my arm. I called my friend Marco Voss, who works nights in Chicago. He laughed and said, "You sure you want to move into that old place?" He asked me to stay at his apartment for a few nights. I did stay with him. Even there, I checked the vents, and I kept replaying the video until morning came, really. I moved out a month later and sold the Craftsman to a young couple who wanted the charm of old houses. I told them a few parts of the truth and left out other parts. I kept the footage on a hard drive hidden in a drawer. I still check locks at night. Sometimes I catch myself peeking at the vents when rain starts. Nimbus will look up and then at me, like she knows to be wary. I do not know if Lenore J. was the watcher or a joke. I do not know who used the vents or why the photos came exactly 20 minutes after I got home on the 8:10. The note times matched my life too closely for coincidence. The worst part was learning that someone could study my little moves and choose nights to step into my life. That is the thing that stays with me when it rains. Someone was living above my bedroom ceiling for 2 weeks. They knew what time I turned off the lights. They knew which floorboards I skipped. They knew my name. And the worst part? I kept making excuses for every single sign they left behind. I've lived in Tucson my whole life. Grew up here, went to school here, bought my first house here on a quiet street just off Speedway Boulevard. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, a carport, and an attic I never really used. I moved in during June. By July, I wished I hadn't. It started dumb, like really dumb. I opened the attic hatch one afternoon to store some boxes and noticed the pull-down ladder felt wrong. Stiff in a weird way. Warped, I told myself. July in Tucson is brutal. Humidity from the monsoons gets into everything. Wood swells, doors stick. I didn't think twice. A few days later, I went to grab my gray hoodie from the closet and it wasn't there. I checked the laundry. Nope. I blamed myself. Figured I left it at my buddy Ozil's place or something. I literally texted him about it. He said no. I forgot about the hoodie. I forgot about the ladder. Then I found a hair tie in the gutter outside my bedroom window. I don't have long hair. I don't have a girlfriend. I stood there staring at it for a second, and then just flicked it off and went inside. I don't even know why. Guess I didn't want to think about it. The fingerprint was what made me actually stop. I was checking the hatch because one of my ceiling tiles looked water damaged. When I reached up to pull the cord, I saw it, a fingerprint, greasy and dark on the inside of the hatch panel. On the inside, the side that faces up into the attic, like someone had pushed it closed from above. I told myself maybe it was from when I moved in. Maybe I'd reached up weird. I told myself a lot of things that month, but then I went up there with a flashlight. There was dust everywhere, the way old attics always are. Except there was a footprint, small, like a kid's sneaker. It went from the hatch area all the way toward the far eave, and then just stopped. No second print, no way out. Just one foot stepping forward, and then nothing. I stood there so long my flashlight started to dim. I came back down and sat at my kitchen table for like 20 minutes doing nothing. Then I got weird about the ladder. I measured the rungs, one of them near the top. It had been cut, not broken, cut clean. Made a kind of hidden grip that only made sense if you were coming down from above, using it like a handle to lower yourself quietly. Someone had modified my ladder. I installed a motion light, pointed it at the hatch, told myself if anything moved it would go off and I'd know. It went off twice. Both times at 2:02 in the morning. I'm not making that up. Same time, 2 nights in a row. I stumbled out of bed, stared at the hatch. Nothing. I checked my porch camera and saw nobody outside. That's when I realized the camera only covered outside. Whoever it was, they were already in, already above me, already waiting for me to go back to sleep. I didn't sleep upstairs after that. I grabbed my jacket and a pillow and camped in the living room. Didn't tell anyone because honestly, what do you even say? Hey, I think someone lives in my attic? I'd sound insane. Around 3 a.m. I heard it. The creak of the ladder. Slow, careful. The way you'd move if you didn't want to wake somebody up. Then the soft pad of shoes on carpet. Real slow. Coming down the hall. I laid completely still. Then, right outside the bedroom door I wasn't even sleeping in. A voice. Low. Almost gentle. Are you awake? I don't know how I moved that fast. I was at that door in maybe 2 seconds, yanked it open hard enough to hit the wall. Nothing. Just the empty hall and the hatch hanging open at the far end, swaying just a little bit. And on the floor, right at the doorway, a coin. Tiny. Like one of those cheap plastic tokens you get from a claw machine at a gas station. The kind that's worth nothing. I called the police. They searched the attic, the crawl space, the whole house. No one there. They said maybe it was a neighbor kid. Maybe a squatter who'd been gone for weeks. Maybe I imagined the voice. I didn't imagine the voice. I moved out of that house 11 days later. Stayed with Ozell until I could find an apartment over in Mesa. I didn't take much. Honestly, I didn't want to touch half my stuff after that. The thing that gets me, still gets me, is how long it must have taken. They knew the house. They knew when I left for work. They knew which lights I turned off first. Whoever it was, they'd been up there learning the whole rhythm of how I lived, how I moved, when I exhaled. I drove past the house once, a few months later. Someone new was living there. Their attic light was on. I didn't stop.